The US has vetoed an Arab-backed resolution in the UN Security Council demanding a ceasefire in the war between Israel and Hamas. Hamas is labelled a terrorist organisation in many countries. The US says it will instead propose its own resolution. It's calling for a temporary ceasefire linked to the release of Israeli hostages. The Algeria-sponsored plan, representing several Arab nations, calls for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire as well as the release of all hostages. OK, let's get more on this from DW's Washington bureau chief, Ines Paul. Ines, tell us why the US vetoed this proposal put forward by Algeria.
Washington said that the Algerian proposed resolution would jeopardize talks to end the war, arguing that it was not the right time to call for an immediate ceasefire while negotiations between Hamas and Israel were continuing. Anya, I think it's worth to mention here that 13 countries on the 15-member body backed Algeria's resolution, while the UK abstained and the US vetoed it.
OK, so help us understand the main differences then between the Algerian proposal, which was vetoed, and Washington's own proposal.
Right, so the difference lies in the requirements that need to be fulfilled. The draft resolution proposed by the US calls for a temporary ceasefire as soon as practicable and on the condition that all hostages are released. However, it is unclear if or when the Security Council will vote on the form of words proposed by Washington.
OK, and this is the first time that the US has used this word ceasefire, isn't it? What does this say about its current relations with Israel?
Right, so this really marks a moment. The Biden administration has not only come under immense international pressure to use its leverage to rein in Israel's devastating operations, but Biden is also facing intense pressure from members of his own party to speak more forcefully on the situation in Gaza. And of course, in this election year, which is just beginning, Biden is also risking to lose important voter bodies like young voters or Arab Americans because of his support for Israel.
Ines, thanks so much for that update. That's DW's Washington bureau chief, Ines Paul. Now, in Israel, authorities are working hard to help residents return to areas that were left empty after the trauma of the terror attacks carried out by Hamas on October the 7th last year. DW's special correspondent, Amian Isif, visited the city of Sderot, which is near the border with the Gaza Strip. A kindergarten here has now reopened as some families return to the city.
The voices of children in a classroom. It's a sound that had left this city for 4 months. Around 90% of Sderot's population fled in the days following the Hamas terror attack. Even children this young had heard Hamas rockets fall before the latest war. But October 7th was a new kind of terror. For the few families that have decided to return, it's an important day.
It's a kind of routine. We're starting to go back to a daily schedule, back to sanity after this catastrophe that we experienced on that Saturday, and all those months we spent away from here. I call it exile. In Judaism, it's called exile when you're away from your natural habitat. And the kids, as you can see, are having lots of fun being around their classmates again, in their natural habitat. It's our home, after all.
The city is clearing the debris of a battle. This empty lot was the site of a police station, stormed and then occupied by Hamas militants. A mural marks the standoff that ensued when Israeli troops destroyed the building with the attackers inside. Many of the scars that were left by the attack have been patched over. But still, 2/3 of the city's 30,000 residents haven't come back. Sderot's deputy mayor expects that it will take another month at least before even half of the residents return.
We are not encouraged, we are enabling. And it's a big difference. We're not call people, come here to Sderot, it's good for you, because it's very personal. Someone that is good for him, he will come. Someone that his child is very afraid and have a post-traumatic disorder, so stay out of the city for a long time. But we are enabling everyone to come here to start again.
The military has assured him the city is secure, and Hamas hasn't launched rockets in this direction in 2 weeks. But many say they won't feel safe unless Hamas is destroyed. Little by little, Sderot is recovering from the horror of October 7th and returning to some kind of daily life. The explosions that you hear on a regular basis in this city keep everybody on edge, but they know that for now, at least, it's the sound of Israeli shells hitting Gaza, which is just over a kilometer away. There, it's an active war zone, and a return to routine is still unthinkable.
And I'm joined now by DW's Amian Isif in Jerusalem, who filed that report for us. Amian, you said in your report 2/3 of the city's residents still haven't come back. Can you describe to us how life has changed in Sderot since the October the 7th attacks? What have people there told you?
Well, it's completely different. I mean, for one thing, it feels like a ghost town. A lot of the shops are still boarded up. People expected life to return, but it's happening little by little. For a lot of people, they wanted to move back just to get back to their daily routine. They had to go back to work. They wanted to get their kids back to school. For others, though, there's more of a religious aspect to it. Some people we talked to cited Zionism, the belief that they need to stand their ground no matter what happens, to maintain their claim to the land no matter what happens in the face of any kind of tragedy. And that was their motivating factor for moving back before they felt completely safe. Now, the city has been traumatized by what happened on October 7th. It's for a long time been the target of rocket attacks, but nobody had seen anything like what happened on October 7th when Hamas militants ran through the streets, indiscriminately killing civilians. At least 20 civilians were killed on that day. So there is now a sense of victory after the IDF secured the area and then started its campaign on Gaza, where most of the people in northern Gaza were forced south. And the city there was completely bombed. It might be jarring to an outsider, but there is a sense of pride that the city of Sderot is opening back up, that people are getting on with their lives as much as they can, even as they're just a few kilometers, and in some places just a kilometer away from an active war zone. I mean, you can grab a pair of binoculars, go up on a hill, and look into what is a war zone. You can see the rubble left behind by the bombing campaign in northern Gaza.
I mean, of course, you reported that many of Sderot's residents haven't come back. So what is stopping them from moving back, and where are they right now?
Well, for many, it's still trauma. Young kids who are not yet ready to go back there. Don't forget, a lot of the Sderot is a city, but it's a small city, and a lot of people who live there saw with their own eyes what happened on October 7th and are just not yet ready to confront those memories yet. For other people, they don't want to go back to a ghost town yet. They want to wait and see what happens with the city and businesses opening back up. They want to go back to a lively city and not be the pioneers who open that city back up. Another issue is that the evacuees are getting subsidies from the government. They're allowed to live in hotels outside of the city. And for a lot of people, this just makes a lot more sense than moving back to Sderot at the moment. So there's a lot of reasons why people are staying away. We went to a hotel in Jerusalem where there was lots of families basically holed up, waiting for the right time to move back. But they told us all that they will eventually move back to their hometown.
Amian, we'll have to leave it there, but thanks so much for that. That's DW's Amian Isif reporting from Jerusalem.